Birdie bread is such a popular food for parrots that I wanted to show you my favorite recipe, how to make it, and give you some really helpful tips. You can choose to use a package mix and doctor it up with parrot-safe ingredients, but we're going to do it from scratch today. Remember that mixes are made up for human taste buds, and by making your own, you can not only omit ingredients like salt and sugar that you don't want to have in there, it also allows you to control the ingredients that you do want to use. Before we begin, I want to clear up a misconception that the bird community has about the place that Birdie bread holds in the parrot diet. It's a snack food, not a daily food, even though it contains vegetables. Let me explain why. Back a decade or two ago, the word started spreading that, contrary to popular belief, an all-seed diet was inadequate for parrots and that fresh foods were essential to their health. Following that revelation, the hottest topic in town was, how do I get my birds to eat vegetables? That's when the buzz started about Birdie bread, because it's a perfect introduction to vegetables since they can be cooked right into the bread. But here's the thing. Birdie bread was intended as a tool to persuade stubborn birds to try a vegetable. It was never meant to be considered a complete parrot diet or part of a daily diet. It's bread, and just by its nature, that means it's high in carbs. Too many carbs in the diet makes for a fat bird. That's one problem. But also, since it's used as a lure to get birds to eat vegetables in an underhanded way, if it's going to be effective as a tool for that, it has to contain foods that attract their attention, and the lures in the bread will be snack foods and not foods that should be part of your parrot's everyday diet. But they have to be there, because if the bird isn't interested in the bread, the whole plan falls apart. Since you have to use snack food ingredients that we know that the bird is going to go for, you're going to have to make the healthiest choices for those ingredients as you can. This is one of my favorite recipes, and I'll explain why as we go along. So let's make some bread. First, you have to start with the good flour. I toyed with using an unusual flour like coconut flour or quinoa flour, but in the end I went with my go-to flour, whole wheat. Whatever flour you choose, make sure that you use a non-refined flour, so not a white flour. Here we're using a half a cup. We're going to use 1 cup of oats, just like the ones that we use to make oatmeal. We're going to use a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And we're going to use 1 cup of granola. And I got it crushed up a little bit so there aren't too many big chunks and it kind of disperses through the batter well. This is the first step of sweetening for this recipe. So choose your granola very carefully and make sure that the ingredients are parrot safe. You'd be surprised how many have chocolate and cocoa in them. The brand I use sweetens moderately with real cane sugar. Keep the sweetening of your bread to a minimum. You don't want to make your bread really sweet so that your bird will go for it. You really don't need to do that. And you don't want to have your bird associate good food with sugar, because your goal is to eventually get your bird to happily and willingly eat raw vegetables, and you don't want them disappointed because they lack sugar. So watch how much sweetening you do. You can use fruit. Natural cane sugar or stevia are preferable to the processed table sugars. There are no perfect sweeteners, so just go with the ones that are better in quality. And finally, I add a bit of calcium. This is a snack food, so I try to maximize it as much as possible, and I add some calcium to it. That's something that's really lacking in the companion parrot diet. I use a box grater, and I just shave off a bit of a cuttle bone or a mineral block, about a tablespoon. Heat doesn't destroy calcium, or most minerals for that matter, so we can cook it right in. Mix the dry ingredients. In a separate bowl, beat together 2 eggs, a half a cup of non-dairy milk. We're going to use almond milk in this. You could also use rice milk. A 1/4 cup of applesauce. And then we're going to add these with the dry ingredients. And mix this together. We're going to have to stop. Add 1 banana mashed. The addition of the bananas and the applesauce are the final stage of sweetening for this recipe. The final product just kind of hints at sweetness, but isn't actually sweet. And now we're going to add the veggies. Try to avoid wet veggies. Don't add frozen veggies. They release a lot of liquid as they thaw, and it can turn the batter into like this soupy mess that doesn't want to cook. I'm going to be using fresh peas, and they're just starting to sprout, about a half a cup of those, and some green beans that are cut in sizes that are appropriate for all of my birds. I'm going to mix those in. And finally, we're going to add a half a cup of kale, and it is finely chopped. I used a machine to do it. And the reason I did it so finely chopped is because I want it to really get well incorporated into the batter. Remember, if you're trying to get your bird to eat veggies, adding too many at the beginning is a reason for your bird not to eat this at all. So go light it first, and then slowly increase the amount that you use in the future. And the kale is going to mix in really well with the batter, and so the bird is not going to have an opportunity to eat around it. You could add beans, you could add cooked grains, you could add pasta, but please don't, because this already has too many carbs in it. The reason I love this recipe is because the batter is so thick and chunky even before the vegetables get added. That allows me to take a toothpick and stand it up in the batter. Why would I want to do that, you ask? I have 5 birds. I've got a large bird, I've got a medium-sized bird, and I've got 3 small birds. And I like to add certain ingredients for my small birds and then some different ones for my cockatoos. 2 batches of this is too much, so I've come up with a way to divide it while it's still in the pan and before it's baked. All of my birds eat vegetables, but my small birds go lighter on the pellets than I want sometimes, and the little guys also get a little bit of seed in their diets, where my big birds do not. So I can modify sections of the bread to be as beneficial as I can make it for both sets of birds. I separate the bread with the toothpicks. The bigger birds will consume the majority of this bread, so I divide it this way. The small section is going to get sprinkled with ground pellets. That's for my little birds. And the big section is going to get sprinkled with ground flaxseed. My big birds eat plenty of their pellets every day, but since they get no seed, and since Linus refuses to eat nuts, and Theo is sometimes indifferent towards them, they don't get the benefits of the nuts or the seed, which is mainly the omegas, the vitamin E, and a bunch of minerals. So what I do with them is I add the ground flaxseed to their side to replace that, and then I put the pellets over on the small bird side so that they get that. Now I have 2 different breads in one dish, and I hate throwing away food. So if you have one bird, invest in a vacuum sealer, and then freeze what your bird can't eat within about 3 days. And here's a cool tip. If you're using Birdie bread as a method to get your bird to accept certain foods, you'll have to gradually increase the amount you put into the bread, and you have to do that in a way that's acceptable and comfortable for them. If you have one small bird, it'll take some time for them to get through this batch, and you'll be delaying moving on to the next step, introducing a higher ratio of the food that you're trying to introduce. That kind of defeats the purpose. You can make one batch, which is divided into 3 stages. And so I'm going to set up some more toothpicks here. Now we have 1, 2, 3 different kinds of breads. You can leave the first one as is, and you can push in some more vegetables into the second section. Just kind of pop them right in there like that, and even more into the last section. And now you have, for one bird, you have 3 different stages of foods just by throwing in some extra vegetables to these sides. And then you can take them and freeze them separately and mark the bags and use them as you need them as your bird develops and gets accustomed to the vegetables. And now that you've designed and personalized your Birdie bread, put it into a preheated 375-degree oven. That's 190 Celsius. Toothpicks and all for 28 to 32 minutes. Let it cool to room temperature before feeding it to the birds because it stays hot in the center for a while. Want some, Theo? Theo loves her Birdie bread. So there you go. We have more Birdie bread recipes in our nutrition course and cookbook set with all different ingredients. Come on over and see us on our Facebook page and tell us what you think.